Okay, everybody, welcome. My name is Julie Zasada. I'm the Executive Director of the Cedar Lake Historical Association. We operate the museum at Lassen's Resort, which is next door. We would have been in there today, except there's just too many of you to fit in the one heated room that I have. So we will record this presentation and put it out to YouTube so that you can share it with anyone who was unable to join us. This is our 5th year of the History Roadshow series. This is the second of 3 programs this particular year where we're talking about the earliest settlers of our community. The Ball family was the program that we did in November, and again, that is posted already to our YouTube page. Today, of course, is the Surprise family, and in March, we're going to cover the Taylor family. We'll unpack the history of the Obadiah Taylor family, which may have you guys beat as far as the largest family in our area. I'm not sure. I'll let you know. In between now and then, we do have one other event where the History Road Show, or the show is on the road. We have a Dine Out fundraiser coming up at Tavern on Main. Those of you who were following us this past summer know that we had our summer social speakeasy, and they catered. They did the bar package for us. So now they're doing another little special thing for us, and 10% of the proceeds from this day will benefit back to the museum. So I would encourage you anytime from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., dine in or carry out, go visit Tavern on Main. I will for sure be there by happy hour, so join us. I think too, you're all aware that we rethemed the museum this past year. It's now the Museum at Lassen's Resort, which explains the shirt that I'm wearing. Those followers of this program know that every time I do one of these, I have a different shirt to share something with you. So these are our new swag that we can order at Land's End. So special order if you want anything. Go on the homepage, lassensresort.org. You can get bags or little fleece jackets, all sorts of cute things. I think I own one of everything. So just let me know if you want to see what they look like. And I want to welcome, I have a lot of members in the audience and a lot of family members of the Surprise family. So I'm really happy to have all of you here today. For 2022, I do want to share, we have a couple of new membership benefits that we're introducing. So we're going to have a members only preview day on April 10th because, as you all know, I'm working like a little busy bee all winter and then new things debut. So we're going to have a members only preview day this year on April 10th. We're actually opening early this year because there's a special exhibit that I can't tell you about yet coming to town on April 15th. Free museum admission comes with your memberships all season long. Advanced purchase options for the steamboat cruises, which are coming back in 2022. Very excited about that. This year, artists will have free registration for the art show. So any of our members who also want to exhibit in the art show, you will have free registration for that. And of course, we've maintained the Time Travelers Reciprocal Program, which is a group of over 300 museums throughout the United States that your membership here is valid at. So you can look that up online for what that includes. And then discounted tickets for behind the scenes annual tour, where we go upstairs and downstairs in the museum. And of course, events like this are free. So those are some of the new benefits we're rolling out. And my last commercial before we get started involves the fact that I am recruiting committee members for the organization right now. We have 6 committees this year. We've got our Building and Restoration Committee, Carl, the Collections Care Committee, our Events Committee, the Finance Committee, Guest Services, and Transportation, which is in charge of our Taylor Ice Truck, as well as somebody that you haven't met yet, also in the Dewey family line. So I'll tell you more about that next time. So, ready? Let's begin. Fantastic. Today's program, like I said, is about the Surprise family. And a quick reminder for you, the Pioneer Days, we've defined this period of time where we kind of narrowed in on these 3 families that we're covering, was from about 1830 to 1870. So you'll see a lot of those dates here. But we're going way back for the Surprise family in particular. Most of the families that I've been researching for the Cedar Lake history have been of German heritage, whereas the Surprise family has both French and Native American heritage. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. For geography purposes, we're going to be referring to this area up here, which Nova Scotia is up in here. This is the Indians who, I don't know where the year this map was populated, but these are the where all the different Indian tribes were located throughout North America. So your ancestors, Surprise family members, came from the Micmac tribe, Algonquin tribe up there. And let's see if I had anything else to point out on this map. No, just kind of remember that that's the area we're talking about as I start to flip through some of the other slides. 1608. Samuel de Champlain from France came over and was exploring all around this coastal area. He ended up landing at an area called Lacarie. I'm not good with French. I don't know if any of you guys are, but I'll do my best. And set up the very earliest Port Royal fortress. Today, like I said, that's near Nova Scotia. So that's one of the sketches of that fortress that he had made. And then this is that area I was just pointing out on the other map. So here's Port Royal. You come around, it's right in here. And then his area of exploration came all the way down to Cape Cod and back up again. So when you watch this on the YouTube channel, or if you come up after the presentation, you can look at this in a little bit more detail, be able to see these places. Lacarie was approximately 30 miles from Montreal, about the same distance from the United States border. Here's Lake Champlain right here. Quebec is here. So that it was up in that area right there. And just a side note as far as how the Indian tribes ended up being resettled. England and Scotland were fighting the French. The native Indians were then exiled into the Louisiana Territory, and you'll see that in another map in a moment. Okay. So in 1663, the Frenchmen had established a government of Canada, and to offset the need for women in this pioneering region of explorers, fur traders, and woodsmen, the government of France sent over a boatload of girls, some who were called daughters of the king. These were poor, good girls raised in France in an institution subsidized by the king. So they were sent to Canada to wed the colonists, and this was all facilitated through the church in an effort to build family life in the early villages, in particular Three Rivers and Quebec, which are in this area up in here. Here's Quebec, here's Three Rivers, here's Lacarie, here's Port Royal. So that's the area that we're looking at there, talking about. In the year 1675, again on the coast of Lacarie, Jacques Surprenant was stepping off of a French sailing ship, and he had left his parents, also named Jacques, and then Louise Bouquet Surprenant in Perche, France, where they lived their entire lifetime. So that was on the previous screen. Hold on, let me go back to the previous screen. This is the coast of Normandy. It's Perche was approximately right here. I don't know if it was actually a coastal town or this is the region, but to give you a frame of reference, northern coast of France. So that's where your ancestors were traveling or came from. So Surprenant is literally translated to mean people who do surprising things. Jacques met and married Jeannie Dinote in 1678 at La Prairie, which I believe was in Quebec. She was a widow with 6 children when she married Jacques, and they had 4 sons and 4 daughters together. Now, pretty much all of this research that I'm sharing with you comes from Beatrice Horner. She was the first historian for Cedar Lake, and she's also a surprise family descendant. And so virtually everything that I am sharing with you comes from her writings, her newspaper articles, and her research. And then we did a lot of cross-referencing with different census records to make sure we're getting it all right. So again, 1675 is when Peter's ancestors got to the North American coast. And also around that time, 1679, was when Lake County here in the Kankakee area was established after the voyages of De La Salle down into this western region. So kind of those twin things are happening, obviously in very different parts of the nation. So one of their sons, one of Jacques and Jeannie's sons, Laurent, married a woman named Jeannie as well. They had 2 sons and 11 daughters. Their second son, Jean-Baptiste, married a woman named Marie-Anne Paris in 1749. They had 6 boys and 6 girls. And their son, Pierre, married a woman named Lacou Salebacus, and they had 1 son, also Pierre, that guy right there on the screen. So that is where we finally start to get connected to our Cedar Lake heritage. So Pierre, born Pierre Surprenant, later Americanized to Peter Surprise, married LaRose Taylor. They got married in 1816. He was about 22 at the time. Now, I really am a stickler for getting things right. I do not know where, I know LaRose has several names throughout the course of the years, Roseanne and La Rosa and LaRose, all these different things. I don't know where the Taylor came from. I don't know if that's an Americanized version of Terrien or how this came about. It was all over B's writings, so we leave it in there. It's even on her headstone that her maiden name was Taylor. But I really can't find anything that explains why. And so that bothered me a little bit, and if you family members know, I'd like to know the answer to that question. But her father was Jean-Baptiste Terrien. He married an unnamed Mi'kmaq woman, so her Native American heritage is Mi'kmaq Algonquins. It's an Algonquin-speaking tribe. She was full-blooded, so LaRose was half Native American. And again, like I said, they were from Acadia, and they were hunters, gatherers before they came into contact with the Europeans. They grew tobacco, would do moose and caribou hunts up in that northern part of Canada, lived in wigwams. At the end of the French and Indian War, as I had mentioned, a lot of them ended up in that Louisiana territory. So again, 1816, Peter and LaRose. Peter at the time was Catholic, LaRose was outside the church, so they traveled over the New York border to Cooperville to be married by the civil authorities. So they lived a few years, it says, in Saint Jean, then 5 years on a farm on the western shore of Lake Champlain until about 1832, when their cabin burned. Now, here again, the history is a little bit muddled. Some things say they lost 2 children in that fire, other things say that they just lost those early children to infant illnesses. I'm not exactly certain which one it is, but that is a piece of the history for them. And this photograph, you've seen the retouch version probably a lot, like in the newspaper articles, but that version that we have in the archives at the museum was actually based off of this photograph. So that's the original that retouch version came from. This little inset, there is a website, I think it's Family Search, and that photograph is connected to LaRose's profile. I don't know for certain if that's her or not, because there was another picture, another family descendant who I believe that was using the same photograph. So maybe it's an earlier version of her, but I am not certain. But I did throw that in there for reference, and maybe if any of you have come across it in family records or anything, you'd be able to see that, so, or to clarify that for us. Lots of kids. Also, again, the record is unclear. Maybe they had 11, maybe they had 14. They definitely had a lot, and I found all of these. And these are all in the correct order. They are not in some of the records, which drove me crazy. I was about 3 hours researching Elizabeth this morning. Someone had her as being born in 1944, which I knew was impossible based on census records, because in the 1830 census, Peter's household out in New York had 2 girls under age 5 living in it. And then in 1940, 2 girls aged 10 to 14, and then they drop off, the girls drop off in the next 2 decades of census records. So that was bothering me that she was listed as 1944, and so we got kind of to the bottom of that. So Alonzo, on an article I'm going to read you, we just know that he died very young, don't really know any details about him, and then all the rest of the children. So we'll go through all of these. Well, there's a lot of stories to tell about many of the children, but in interest of time and keeping you all and getting you connected to the Cedar Lake piece of all of this, we're not going to cover many of them, but we do have some more research. So if you are interested in learning as much as we do know, you'll have to make a little appointment. We'll sit down and pour over all the papers, and I'll share more with you. But I'm going to touch upon highlights for some of the children that we were able to find information for. So again, approximately 4 infant deaths, not exactly sure when, but I do believe that they all occurred before the family came to Indiana. All of the children, let's see, Henry and Pryor would have all been born in New York, and then Harvey through William would have all been born here in Pleasant Grove, present day Lake, what is it, Lake Dale? I almost forgot the name of the town. So Peter, after that fire, traded his land, his New York land, for a stock of boots and shoes and some money, and then he ended up relocating to Indiana. Again, the year isn't quite certain, 1833, 1835, approximately then, but the family followed a party of French relatives and neighbors who settled near the Kankakee Rapids at Momence and trapped in the marshlands. So he stayed there with them for a while, but then made his way back over here to Lake County, if the records are accurate. He built a log cabin about 1/2 mile south along Cedar Creek at Pleasant Grove, and I'll show you approximately where that is on a map in a moment. And they were, Cedar Creek Township squatters at the time. Peter built that cabin on about a 200-acre tract of land, and it says that his house was patterned after the homes of St. John's Province in Canada. So that cabin burned. These poor people. That cabin burned, and Peter lost his stock, his furniture, several hundreds of dollars of money, and then rebuilt again. Let's see here, I got a side document I want to read from, some research that was done under B's direction. All the furniture was handmade to fit in the spaces in the rooms. An all-purpose table with benches on each side was for the children. The rooms were lit by handmade candles, with light coming through the openings covered with greased or oiled paper. Crude ladders helped the older children to their beds up in the loft. The Surprise family eventually numbered 8 children, while 6 were lost at infancy. Again, we think it's 4 to 5. The Surprises knew winters were rigorous, so during the summers they prepared for them. Clothing had to be made in the home, as well as shoes, which Peter was skilled in making. The sharp-eyed, black-dressed, tall, thin Indian maiden who had become Mrs. Peter Surprise had to fit her role as a wife and mother. Her natural ways allowed her children easy identification with their peaceful Indian neighbors who lived in the Cedar Lake and Lowell regions. The family raised hogs and ate fresh game and fruits daily, and there were no schools, but the children learned from the families and their family and the natural surroundings. There's a note in here about how Peter's favorite pastime was dancing. He was a temperate user of tobacco and whiskey. He made his own medicine from barks and herbs that he gathered. He burned charcoal for many years, especially in New York, and then also at a facility here in the Lakedale area. It says that the family in general lived peaceably with the Indian natives because, remember, they were here first, so they were the predominant settlers of the area. And it notes that in multiple sources, not just the family history here, that white settlers were the minority. The Indian natives would walk quietly in and out of people's log cabins, just looking around and leaving. The Indian braves would just come into the cabins unbidden and wash their muskrat pelts in the water pail. The family, I already mentioned, raised hogs, lived off the land, hunted wild game. So let's see here. So the homestead, the original homestead, this is a map marked up in 1838 by Sloane Robinson. So here's Cedar Lake right here. So we're kind of pointing to this area in large. So in this section right here is where their original homestead was located, the first log cabin. And then the primitive charcoal enterprise that he had was approximately somewhere down in here, in that area. And you can see Cedar Creek coming out of Cedar Lake right there. This is a really old map of the area, so you can see the marshlands here at the south end of Cedar Lake, which on a lot of different, like the lake is even shaped different than what you would see now because they had filled in so much for trying to recapture the edge of the lakeshore for farming and different things like that. So, this next map here, well, one thing I wanted to mention when I was showing you the last map, August 10th, 1837, Peter was naturalized by County Clerk Sloane Robinson. Until then, he was a subject of King William IV of Great Britain. And there's also another note in the newspaper articles that says that during the Indian removal of the 1830s, Peter and LaRose stayed quiet about her Native American heritage in order to not fall subject to having to leave. Slide 12, that's slide 12. All right, so LaRose died on July 10th of 1876. We were not able to find an obituary for her. We found some different ones for people, but could not find one for her to just kind of, narrow down which kids were still around and all that different kind of stuff. Now these maps, very far away, I apologize for you in this room, but these little stars, again, go and watch this later, these are all the different surprise parcels that were noted in 1874 on the Hardesty sectional map, as well as 1891. So here's that map from the previous slide. And again, this part here is where the original homestead was. This is kind of where you're looking at right here in this box 13 here, which I think is called a section. So here's some surprise family lands. I believe this was Henry's. More of Henry's over here. Henry had more land up here. This is Oliver, the brother. And then this parcel from J. Hill ends up being sold to, what does this one say on here? E. Surprise Ernest, I think, one of the gentleman's sons. So these were the surprise lands. And then I'll be talking in a little bit about William's land up here at Cedar Lake, which is where Surprise Park and the golf course are located. On the occasion of his 102nd birthday, or approximately thereabouts, an article is written about Peter in one of the Lowell newspapers, so I'm going to read this to you. some of the details are not correct, as we have found with census records. As he has been briefly stated prior to this date, Mr. Peter Surprise, who lives with his son Henry 4 miles northeast of this city, is probably the oldest man now living in the state of Indiana. So again, this was written in 1896. And he was about 102 at the time. The records of his birth were destroyed by fire many years ago, but as near as can be ascertained, he was born August 8th, 1793. That's not the record, the date we have in the records. We have a 1794 date for him, February 24th, I believe, making him 102 years old. He was born in the lower province of Canada, and the year 1819 moved to New York. It says then to Chicago in 1820, but I have not found anything else to substantiate that claim. And after a short time, moved to this place, taking up a homestead on what is now known as the John Lynch Farm, just east of the incorporated limits of Lowell. He was a subject of the King of Britain until the 10th day of August, 1837, when he took out naturalization papers at Crown Point, Indiana, before Solon Robinson, who was county clerk at that time. His wife, whose maiden name was Rosanna Taylor, passed away to the spirit land in the year 1875. To this union, 11 children were born. Those dead are one infant, Alonso and Mrs. Sally Stilson. Those living are Elizabeth Hardin of Oklahoma Territory, Lavina Coho and Harvey of Buffalo, Kansas, Armina Rosenbauer and William of Paisley, Indiana, and Alvina Wheeler, Oliver, and Henry of Lowell. The picture which accompanies this article, which was just, you can barely make it out, so I didn't end up putting into the presentation, was caught on the fly on a wooded piece of land where the old gentleman was performing his daily toil, that of clearing up stumps. It was necessary for the artist to get a snapshot on the old gentleman, as he is a non-believer in such expensive luxuries as that of paying out money for photographs. Physically, he is very attractive, probably as much so as so many who are many years younger than him, but on account of the wear and tear of a century, his mind is slightly impaired. He is a firm spiritualist and has many spells, what he terms his exercises. If he desires to converse with his wife, now deceased, he goes into a trance and commences his exercise, that of talking with her. The difference between God, the maker of all things, and the devil is a matter far beyond his comprehension, but is one of his chief topics. When asked by a reporter if he worked hard, he replied that he worked hard through the day and at night, had his exercises with God and the devil. When asked if such work did not tire him, he replied, "Oh yes, it did at first, but now I'm used to it and do not mind it anymore." He is of the opinion that he will live 100 years more. So, little bio. Like I said, details are not quite accurate based on what we've been researching, but that's, I guess, just an example of how things kind of, just like almost telephone, right? They just kind of get messed up through the years when a newspaper types something just slightly wrong. Okay, so August 23rd, 1903, at 8 p.m., at the age of 109, Peter died. He was laid to rest beside LaRose in the Creston Cemetery, which is south of Cedar Lake. I believe most of you are familiar with where that's located. Little White Church there, built in 1875, is where Reverend Timothy Ball conducted the funeral Saturday, August 29th, 1903. The story goes that Reverend Ball lifted each child of the congregation high enough to allow a better look, as he said to them, "You may never in your lifetime look upon such an aged man again." And by 1903, when he passed, Peter had 22 grandchildren and 40 great-grandchildren. So that kind of concludes our notes on Peter and LaRose. We're going to talk about the children that we do have information for now. So this is Oliver Surprise. If you remember, he was one of the older boys. Let me see here. In the birth order, looks like he's the third boy born to them. About 1839, I didn't point this out when we were on that other slide, but there's like 5 people in the family who were supposedly born on December 1st. I'm not buying it. Like, seriously? So one of them must be, and then that just got transposed to like other family members. But anyway, so Oliver supposedly December 1st, but 1839. So he was in the Civil War. He mustered with the 73rd Regiment, Indiana Volunteers Company A, on August 16th of 1862. He served throughout the war and was twice wounded in battle. His military service was between August 2nd of 1862 and July 12th of 1865. Again, all in Company A, 73rd Regiment. He received a gunshot to one of his hands, which resulted in the amputation of one of his thumbs, and then he was transferred to the Volunteer Relief Corps on October 24th, 1863, and he was doing light duty work from there on. The Lowell Public Library has actually quite a few newspaper articles transcribed about Oliver from the 1920s and 30s, about him and his wife, Carlinda, and the fact that, they had married for over 60 years. At the time that one of the articles was written in 1925, he was one of the oldest living men born in Lake County, who still to be alive, and his obituary is there as well. So again, these are all searchable through the Lowell Public Library if you've never seen them before, and if you want web links, just send me an email. I'm happy to share with you where we found all that information, because there's a lot of surprise family history on that website. So again, pictures of Oliver and Carlinda right here. Those all came off of that website from Lowell Library. These are the twins, Lovina and Alvina. Lovina on the left, Alvina on the right. And this is Alvina here. She's the one who married the Wheelers. Where's the audience member who lives in the Wheeler home? There you go. Okay. So that is Alvina. And then these are, let's see here, not all of their children are in here, but let's see, looks like Jesse, John Eunice, Alvina herself, Ella, Maud, Martha, Bertha, and Jenny. So that's some of their children. She married William Weaver of Liverpool, England. He was a veterinarian, married him in 1857, and he built a log home at 9305 West 173rd, so that's southwest of Creston, off of Parish Avenue, and raised their family of 9 children there. Their oldest son, Charles, again not in this picture, became a local carpenter, and I really like Charles because he helped to build many of the historical buildings in Cedar Lake, including the Armour Brothers Hotel, which I hope you all realize is now the museum wing of our building across the parking lot. Also helped build the Lassen's Dance Pavilion. Their daughter Maud, right here, married Fred Ewer. Ewer is B. Horner's maiden name. That was her mom. That is how she is connected back into the Surprise family, is through Alvina and Maud. She's also related to the Taylors, so come back in 2 months to find out that whole story too. Okay. This is the William, so this is the last picture I have of any of Peter and LaRose's children. Okay, so this is William here and here. William was the youngest boy. He married Celesta Thomas on April 10th, 1875. They had 4 children. Cora, not pictured in that photo in this newspaper article, and then Cass and Gus, and then Glenn, or Guy and Glenn. Who came first? First Guy, then Glenn. So this is Guy, and that one's Glenn. We don't know who that guy is according to the newspaper article. This is Cass's wife Anna Ribbentrop. I believe this is their daughter Lillian, and then this is William and his wife. And here's William. I don't know who those children are. The back of the picture only said that William's name on it. So William purchased that 135-acre parcel that I had pointed out in the other slide, which is the golf course in Surprise Park. He purchased that at the south end of Cedar Lake in about 1877. It cost him, according to some records, $250 per acre. He was advised not to buy the land because it would never amount to much, and it's noted that they had tapped a 20-foot well into Spring on the Hill to provide clear drinking water for the family. So they built a log home on the present-day second green of the now closed South Shore Country Club. I'll show you that in a moment. And a chimney fire destroyed that home in about 1900. So then they built another 2-story home north of 145th, a little bit closer to the lake. And they farmed that land, he did with his sons, until his health became too poor to do so. That was approximately 1915. And then Cass continued to farm it. And then, of course, the entrepreneurial spirit took over, and Cass and Glenn started to develop the land. So let's see, I think I pointed out everybody in that photograph. Here's one more photograph of Cass and Anna and Lillian. This is Anna's family. So this is the Hoffman family. They were Armour residents, which is on the north end of the lake. That's where the concrete mix company is now. So Anna's from Armour, and so her, I don't know if that's her father, Louis Ribbentrop, John Hoffman, this is Lillian, their daughter, and Anna, and then standing in the back must be Anna's mother, Anna Hoffman Ribbentrop. Then there's Cass, and then there's Anna Ribbentrop Surprise. So that's their family. I'm thinking this was taken about 1913 or 14. because the 1920 census said that Lillian was 8, so you got to do some backtracking. I think that's about when that photograph was taken. So Cass married Anna in 1905. They have 5 children. Lillian, Roy, Julian, Ruth. Sorry, did I say 5? They had 5. Lillian, Roy, Julian, Ruth, and then Genevieve, who died as an infant. And as noted in that little article, you know, they're a well-known family from Armourtown. And as of the 1920 census, Cass was still farming Dad's land because his occupation was listed as farmer. So as we know, all that's going to change in less than a decade for the family. And this is a picture which I just wanted to fit it in here. It goes with the next slide. But this is Glenn, Anna, and Cass. And you'll find out why in a moment, why they're all standing together. So let's talk about Glenn for a minute. Glenn had a real estate business. He was developing Surprise Park. I thought that our historian Scott told me in an effort to support the construction of the golf course. So you can see this ad from June 5th of 1925. It says Surprise Park, Cedar Lake, quarter-mile lake frontage, 50-foot lots as low as $300. The last of the best. Full information right to Glen Surprise. This one here from June 16th, 1925, so just a couple weeks later. Southeast side of Cedar Lake, quarter-mile lakefront, Gentiles only, best beach, 50-foot lots as low as $300. Drive down or phone Lowell. And then this ad was taken out in 1927. Can't read all of it, but I will read to you what I can. So you will prefer Surprise Park, the Indian Reservation, because it is surrounded and peopled by the better class of people. It has a quarter-mile frontage in the southeast side of the lake, the cool side. In the title to every lot is written permanent beach rights and use of 400 feet of the safest, sandiest, and best beach on the lake. There is a community park 500 feet away from the lake where the children can play in safety. The longest pier and water toboggan of Cedar Lake is built on the community beach for owners in Surprise Park. The property is carefully and kindly restricted. Only Gentiles can use or occupy it. Cottages can be financed to suit your convenience, which is the best of guarantees as to title, etc. It is the last of Cedar Lake's best. It is developed by a realtor and title is held by the largest bank in Lake County, the First Trust and Savings Bank of Hammond, Indiana. Streets and electricity, and then I can't read what it says. No assessments, no taxes for 2 years. And I can't read this last part, large something, I think. So this is Glenn's ad from 1927 advertising the subdivision. So in 1928, he actually put a sign over the entrance to the subdivision that read Indian Reservation, but apparently it was not allowed to stay for long. It was removed at the behest of the earlier generations, who insisted that the problems of the Indians shouldn't be taken so lightly. And then in December 21st of 1928, Glenn, Cass, and Anna filed with the Secretary of State, so the Surprise Park Golf and Boat Club Incorporated Hammond, capital stock of $50,000, objects, own, construct, improve, operate, control, manage, rent, conduct, and have constructed and improved tees, greens, fairways, traps, and water streams. So the 3 of them were the incorporators, which is what that photograph came from on the last slide. Now, according to B's research, Glenn dug the ditch on Surprise Park by blasting it with dynamite, and that ditch was used to water the greens on the golf course. So, this photograph, which says it's from 1928, is just pointing out the fact that Williams log home stood in the upper right of this picture. So, this is the second green, isn't it? I only golfed the course one time, but isn't that the second green right along? So his log home would have been here, kind of near where Tasty Top is. And we're going to talk again about Tasty Top, the ice barn that's now the convenience store and apartment home, and the hardware shop across the street. We'll talk about all those in a moment. But yeah, so the log home was here, and then I guess when they built that second home somewhere over here, I don't know exactly where, that would have been built. And of course this clubhouse, present day clubhouse, but the other would have been out over the water. This photograph is taken from, if not the clubhouse, an airplane kind of above, or maybe from the toboggan, I'm not sure. So that photograph there is of the golf course. And then here we have a photograph looking back at the clubhouse built on pilings out over the water, which is something that they did a lot around here, as you know, from our Lassen's property and Midway Ballroom. So built in 1928 for the surprises at an estimated cost of $8,000 to $9,000. Cass's son Roy, who says he was about 14 at the time, remembers the building being erected, and he talked about the balcony upstairs where Uncle Glenn and he used to sleep in the summers, and of course the toboggan slide into the lake, which you can see there at left. They also serviced boats. Their pier was 600 feet long, which is like the pier we have out here is about 200 and I think it was 60 feet, the one that was just put in this past summer. So a 600-foot long pier is the long pier. They also had seaplanes, which if you have this book, or Cedar Lake History book, you can see the picture that actually has the seaplanes sitting in the water right here next to the clubhouse. And they offer plane rides for a price. That windowed cupola at the top of the clubhouse gave a great view of the lake and apparently a quiet sanctuary for lovers until Mrs. Surprise outlawed the romancing. She was in charge of the kitchen and kept her eye on things in the clubhouse. The resort featured, one of the articles says, the resort featured Aunt Sulista's plate-sized homemade pancakes. I don't know if that's a typo. I don't know who Aunt Sulista was. It's spelled wrong. It's not spelled like I would think if it was William's wife, and I think she would have been too old to be doing that. So anyhow, I'm not sure who that Aunt Sulista was, but she made plate-sized homemade pancakes. They also served chicken and beef sandwiches, big Sunday dinners, or ice cream sodas could be had on the screened-in porch on the side there. 500 to 700 chicken dinners were served each week in the clubhouse for $1.25 for a dinner. And as of May 10th, 1929, greens fees was 10 cents. The yacht club was also using the Surprise golf clubhouse as their headquarters. We're thinking the club was established in 1934, so they were there maybe from about that time until maybe 42. That's when the Surprises sold the golf course. So we can't find actual dates of when they used it, but of course they liked it because that cupola provided a great view of the vantage point to watch the races and a long view of the course. And then there's an older picture of now Annie and Cass Surprise. So again, names change so often on all of these different records and stuff, all their nicknames. That picture at the bottom left is from 1976, and then I think this one is from a 1978 newspaper article. So there were 6 owners of the course throughout the years. Like I said, in 1942 is when the Surprise family sold it. I forgot the name of the gentleman who they sold it to. And then it closed apparently in 1943 for a little bit due to World War II. But when Cass and Glenn were owning and operating the course, there was no Cedar Lake police force at the time, so the men kept their own law and order. And there's information in some newspaper articles about that as well. And they said they had very little trouble because of it. So approximately 1978, they finally dismantled the clubhouse. They had built the other one that you see present day on the shore. And it had just become too expensive to, like, they couldn't rewire it and all that kind of stuff. So it was just time, unfortunately, for it to come down. But let's backtrack for a second to May of 1928. That year, Cass and then Julius and John Ribbentrop, his 2 brothers-in-law, incorporated the Empire Ice Company of Hammond with capital stock of $15,000. Their business was to buy, sell, exchange, distribute, and generally deal in ice, coal, coke, and wood. And then, a few years later, 1934, Cass started that ice plant at the southeast side of Cedar Lake that is now an apartment complex and a convenience store. That photograph comes out of our Cedar Lake history book that I just showed you. That's the inside of when it was being operated as ice house. So that's what that photograph is there. By 1942, Cass finally retired from all business activities. His sons, Roy and Julius, were also both Cedar Lake businessmen, and they operated adjacent to that golf course land as we had talked about. Julius serving ice cream, and Roy managing the Surprise hardware store and garden center, which was across the street from, or kitty corner from the ice cream shop, across the street from the ice house. And I just found some staples yesterday from Surprise Hardware in the museum. So we have an artifact, but I'm actually using them. But anyway, we thought that was funny as we were looking through that. How timely that I would need them. So there's a couple more pictures and a few more stories in the Cedar Lake history book about the modern history here, the Cedar Lake Surprise family history. In 1976, a Girl Scout troop, number 454 of Cedar Lake, honored LaRose on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of her death with a bronze plaque permanently placed at her gravesite. So that's what this photograph is of, Bee and her husband and 3 of the girls from the Girl Scout troop. That is the people who own the hill. What's the last name? Samara. That's one of the Samara girls. I don't remember which one. So these girls were, that's where some of that research that I was reading was from their little program, their dedication program. So they had done that research in conjunction with B in preparation for that. So this is, I should still be viewing, I think this is the original plaque, and then they had that one made or something like that, because this says all the same things, but it's clearly a different plaque and everything. So that was 1976, 100th anniversary of her passing. And we're going to end today's presentation with Julius. Because, first of all, out of all the surprise family pictures I found, happy face, dancing. And I thought, how awesome, right? We have a Facebook post from July 28th of 2016 where we shared that picture of Tasty Top. And there were 232 comments that came into that post about this man and this operation. So I strongly encourage you to go. I can't read all of them to you, but Julius and Dorothy operated the ice cream shop, it says, for over 42 years. And it says, when Julius in his spotless white uniform slid that window open to take your order, you were always greeted with a smile and the wonderful aroma of the delicious treats waiting inside. So again, please make sure you go and look that up, or I'll send you the direct link if you don't know how to find it, because it's public. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, you should be able to read it and see all of these memories of Julius. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stop the recording and we're going to turn the camera on the audience so that the family members who are here can share some of the family stories that they have, not to be published on YouTube, just for our archival records. So I want to thank you, though, for all coming out today and learning a little bit more about the surprise family, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you at the Taylor presentation in March. Thank you.